Alright, some random things about texturing in Unreal. And again, disclaimer, my understanding of this is incredibly limited. However, I can show you how to set up basic shaders, and that, for now, is probably all you're going to need. So, I will start with this sack material, so if you double-click on this, and again, this is also why it's good to label your stuff, so if it comes into another program and you're like, oh no, what is this assigned to? Like, you don't need to freak out about it. Alright, so double-click that. This is Unreal's version of the Hyper Shade. Yes, words. Alright, so what I'm going to do is actually probably... I'm going to make a new folder in here and call this In Textures. And I'm just going to go into here. This helps organize stuff if you ever need to. So like, I'd probably, were I being reasonable, would put assorted, images in one, shaders in another, organize it in whatever way makes sense for you. Drag and drop, gosh darn it. Rage. Hang on. Rage. Rage. I know this works. I've done it 80 times today. There we go. Cool. So these, incidentally, are just some random HDRI I got from HDRI Haven and some random stuff I downloaded from textures.com. So we're going to go back into... this little button here will sort of bring up like a nice folder structure thing on the side. So I'm going to go back in here. Once again, double-click on SAC. Make sure that I'm recording, and I in fact am. Very exciting. So we have our nice live preview over here. I do find it takes a little bit to update, but what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And to add something in, so there's a few things you can do. You can right-click. So like in Maya it was tab. Here you right-click, or you can just type in this. And we want to find texture sample. Yes, good, texture sample. I'm just going to go ahead and copy that because we need like 80 of them. I'm just going to go ahead and drag the RGB into base color because I know that's what I'm going to need. And I'm going to apply that, realizing that there's no texture actually in there, and I'm an idiot. Alright, so click on this. Here's where you can go in and actually edit like the files attached to things. We're going to click this. It should bring down a nice little drop down, so if you've labeled your stuff reasonably, you could find all of the textures. Like, I know I'm trying to make this rusted sheet. I'm not, but if I was. You can type in rusted here, and then it would like search for these. So just grab your texture. This should update a second later. I'm going to come back in 2 seconds. I do actually, because I save everything compulsively, I do actually have the SAC texture loaded. So every once in a while it'll pull in properly, but most of the time I do... Oh, dang it, I'm still in the entirely wrong thing. So random tidbit while I'm finding 1 or 2 files. One thing that's been very helpful, I set myself up a NAS drive, which is basically like 2 10-terabyte drives that... Yes, all of my files. It's basically like 2 10-terabyte drives that will back up all of my files, and they sync with each other. So it backs up on one drive, and then it copies it to the other drive, so if one fails, it will still have one drive. So the only way that it can fail is if both drives fail at once, the house catches on fire, or something weird like that. And incidentally, my dad happened to be setting up the same thing, so I have my files syncing to his drives that are 200 miles away, so it's like super extra redundant, and I get all of his files. It was kind of expensive to set up, but it's really redundant, and having that is super nice. Anywho, while those are updating. But you can see that now our SAC has updated here, so we have this little icon is updated, and now our goofy SAC is for some reason covered in rusted metal textures, because that's amazing. Good God, how big are these files? I think this might have been before I knew about texture and file sizes, so these are probably like 4K textures. We're going to see if I can go ahead and just open this maybe while it's doing some other stuff. So either way, clearly this is a weird texture for this, and apparently I can't click, so I'm sorry, we're just going to wait for some time. Don't die on me now. Please don't die. I did also have a weird other issue, which I have absolutely no idea how to fix. But I was trying to do this on my desktop, and it was like, if I click, yes. Okay, if I clicked anything in Unreal, it would suck up so much CPU power that like the computer would just be rendered unusable for like a minute. So I'm now on my slightly newer laptop. But anywho, all right. So now that these have imported, sorry that took so long. I'm gonna go in, and again, just no, wrong thing. Wrong thing. It does give you a nice outliner of all of your joints and other nonsense there. You'll also notice that if you were paying attention, it's sort of switched out. There's some constraints in there and some other random stuff, which it's gotten rid of because it doesn't need them anymore. So I'm going to go back to my sack material and be like, oops, that was a bad decision, adding this weird rusted metal texture. So I'll switch that to my sack texture. And then I have absolutely no idea what I did for a lot of these, to be honest. I've not found a place to put in a normal map. But actually, let me try. So normally, I found that it wants like a proper normal map, like one of the crazy, like usually purple images. Darn it! Don't be giving me a random error. What are you doing? Right, clicking the wrong spot like a doofus. So I have the sack bump texture, and I've actually not tried putting that in, but like, let's see what happens. If it doesn't work, you should then go into something like Crazy Bump or billions of programs online and make that export like a proper normal map, not just like a little grayscale image for you. They look nicer anyway, but like back in the days in Mental Ray, it was just quick and easier to do bump map. So you can see eventually this should update. Here's my super janky sack texture, which for some reason no longer lines up properly with the yeah, so it seems like the sack bump texture didn't really come through. I'm going to leave it for now. But that's more or less how you add file textures to things. What you can do is right-click on this as well and do duplicate. In this case, I have nothing to add this to, so I'm just going to kind of delete that and call it a day. But we're going to go ahead and hit apply for that. So that is modifying an existing texture. Should you want to make a new texture, I will show you how to do that in half a second after this saves. Hiss hiss, okay. So we're going to come down and do, and again, probably should organize this in like a shader thing, but I don't have that much in my scene, and frankly I'm never going to do anything with this, so shrugs. But go ahead and just right click and do new material. I'm going to call this cabinets. I'm actually probably picking maybe not super fantastic things to use, but again, I'm just going to drag this out, texture sample, and you want the just regular texture sample, not like parameters 2D, etc., just texture sample. So hit enter, and there should be some kind of cabinet texture in here. And you can pipe this if you want into different materials. So in this case, I'm going to see what happens if I throw into roughness. Ideally, you would have different maps, but again, you can pipe multiple things in. You can also just grab the R, the G, and the B separately to see what that gives you. And you can do the same thing with the alpha. So I'm just going to figure in, see what happens if I grab blue and like throw that in specular. Wait for this to update eventually. You can also switch to different little... dang it. I thought that would update better. But you can switch to different shapes depending on what you need. Like if you're doing a texture for a flat thing, you could do the flat plane, etc. So anywho, this is not super a great example because it doesn't... One, I am just using the same texture and I have no idea what any of these channels actually look like. But I just yes, I would like to save these. Just sort of showing you like the really basic sort of how to import stuff. So we have this material. I want to actually assign it to something. I've not actually found a great way to just sort of like click and drag this. So you can click and... Oh, actually, cool, that does work. That's exciting. Cough, cough. So you can just click and drag this onto things in the viewport, and it'll attach it automatically. The benefit of having all of the wooden stuff grouped together, I know it's not moving, and it makes it way easier to assign textures. You can also do this manually by clicking the... So help me, give me the... I want the cabinet doors, dang it. Where are the cabinet doors? Okay, well that's somewhat frustrating. Cool. Couldn't find them in the down here, so I just did the drag and drop textures again. Seems like this thing has kind of come over pretty okay. It'll also tell you here which, if you look in the sort of attribute editor-ish thing in Unreal, it'll tell you under materials which material it's using. So in this case we have Blend 7G, so I'm going to go ahead and rename this Handles. And if I wanted to, I could switch this to something else, and again, this is why naming conventions are very important. But in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and open this and see if perhaps I can make this. I'll leave the base color as it is, because I don't think it looks totally appalling, sort of. And honestly, I'm still, like, kind of picking around, trying to figure out, like, the best ways to just sort of apply... What are you doing? There we go. Alright, so in this case, if you want to just do, like, a color value, you can use a little param. So what I'm going to do is come over for metal and just do param. Nope, that's not a thing. To be honest, I thought I heard cats hissing. What's happening? Ah! Param. The thing where you don't know what you're looking for, so you right-click and you duplicate this one. Incidentally, that seems to have broken my yellow, which is irritating. So I'm gonna... Can you go? Okay, I don't know. Very weird. Cool. Really? I have more issues with these, I find, than I do with the... I want this to be very metal, so that should be a value of 0, right? Give me 0. What are you doing? Salt. Like I said, I do have, for some reason, more issues with these than I do with the rest of everything, but now we have something kind of metalish. This is really, like, irritating me that I, for some reason, am incapable of making this color thing change. Right. I'm an idiot, and I didn't turn it off of black. User error. I can't use a color picker. Alright, so theoretically that should do something, and that should have... I expected that to change something. It did, it's just laggy. No! Okay. A thing I have literally just learned is apparently when you duplicate something, it'll often take the texture with it. So that seems to be what's happening there. Cough cough. I'm gonna go ahead and delete that, because I don't want it to be changing my texture every 5 seconds. RAM. Let's just see if there's, like, color. Vertex color. No, that's wrong. Okay. I'll probably just put a note in the description about what to actually do for this. But, yes. That's really frustrating. I wish you didn't need to, like, map a bunch of stuff in there, honestly. But, anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and randomly apply this, even though I don't like any of the changes I made. And that's honestly... I'll show you setting up a texture that doesn't look completely appalling. Namely one with the CG textures. So you can see what, like, a proper texture with different maps actually looks like. So I'm just going to go ahead and just make a new material for that, because I don't know what the heck any of the other ones are. Random metal. And then once I'm done, I'm going to go through and just delete everything else, because they're terrible, terrible textures. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing I did before. Texture sample. Hit enter. And I'm going to grab my, this is, remember when I was like searching is good? So I'm going to grab my rusted metal Beto. I know there's also roughness for this, so I'm going to grab another texture sample. I know that has roughness in the title, so I'm going to grab that. I think there's a metallic? Yeah, there should be a metallic one. So again, just fascinating. They didn't use metal, they just used roughness. Alright, cool. Well, I'm going to map in the normal because that's there. That's mapped into the wrong spot, so what I'm going to do is right-click this and do break links. And this is my normal one, so I'm just going to take this and drag this into the normal camera. I think that was most of the attributes that they had, so I'm going to wait for this to refresh really quick. And we're going to see how this looks. So you can see, let me make this a little larger. So you can see it's like a decent looking little texture. You have some difference, like the rust is not as shiny, etc., etc. If you wanted to, you could also mess around a little bit. I'm surprised this one doesn't have a metal in this texture, honestly. But what you could do is try throwing this into like specular. Sometimes I mess around, just like see what happens if you put things in different maps or in different channels. Sometimes it makes nice effects that you weren't expecting. And again, wait for that. Well, okay, we tried. I'm gonna go ahead and break that because that actually looks terrible. So I'm gonna just call this a day with what we had before, and again throw this on. I'm just going to kind of do everything else in the scene because it's going to be easily the nicest texture we have, and you guys can see how it responds to the lighting. So let me see if I can actually do the thing that I was trying to do. So alright, so I'm going to grab the counters, click on this, and just assign this the random metal material. And I could do the same thing for each one. You will also notice that the walls and the ceiling, in Maya they had two different textures. So when you bring them into here, it preserves that, and it will give you the option to select multiple textures, which is really handy. I find it kind of confusing. As far as I'm sure there's a way to relabel these, but like I don't know exactly what this one is actually going to, so it's like kind of hard to track what's going on. So I'm just going to do the thing where I just drag and drop these again, and just kind of that is a disgusting looking kitchen. Holy crap. And just kind of call that a day. So these are the textures that we will be using going forward. I will have some better texture tutorials, I'm sure, at some point, but today is not that day. So, carry on for lighting.